It's that time of year again, the first new album review from a major metal band, and I'm talking about the band Obituary with the album Dying of Everything, the 11th studio album from the old school death metal band from Tampa, Florida, also known as the birthplace of death metal. Obituary is one of the pioneers of the Florida death metal scene, one of the most anticipated albums of 2023 so far. So in preparation for this review and upcoming ranking video, I have been listening to their entire discography. I will say this is their best album in a long time. Maybe since The Incomplete from 1992. The band still has 3 of its original members, that old school sound, the sick, zombie-like vocals of John Tardy, the pounding drums of Donald Tardy, and the solid rhythm guitar of Trevor Peres. The band also has a few members who joined later in their career, Terry Butler on bass and Ken Andrews on lead. This album opens up with Barely Alive, and it just comes right out the gate with fast rhythms and pummeling guitar riffs. The guitar sound is very crunchy. It includes some wailing guitar squeals. The song does not waste any time. It doesn't lose any of its brutality. In its 3.5-minute runtime, it's heavy, but also has a nice groove to it. I also hear some early Slayer influence on some of the guitar riffs. And what's interesting is, according to drummer Donald Tardy, it's their fastest double bass drum song they have ever done. So that's pretty cool. Then the Romtime is the first single, and it was released a few months ago. And when I heard this for the first time, I thought it was just a very catchy song, especially the guitar riff. It's almost like they stripped down their sound to make a song that was a little more accessible. And it kind of led me to believe that this album would be maybe a death metal version of the Black Album. But that's not really the case. Even though I do feel they do try some new things, it's still an old school death metal album. Without a Conscience slows it down a little, and something the band does often on their albums. They're not always super fast. Not as slow as the closing track. I'll get to that later, but it's a heavy song with some chunky guitar riffs. John Tardy still delivers some brutal vocals, and you get some thick and heavy isolated guitar riffs, and just what you would expect from the band. War is a very heavy track, and I think it's one that would go over great in a live setting. It just opens with the sound of machine gun fire, and it's just a heavy death metal song with some heavy growls and pummeling guitar riffs. John Tardy does some lower register vocals on this one. The song is kind of different because it doesn't follow that specific formula as most songs do with the verse, chorus, verse. It just kind of builds and builds, and it reaches this short acoustic interlude. It lasts only a few seconds, but it just sounds really cool in the context of the song. Dying of Everything is one of the singles, and it stands out because it just has this awesome drum intro and chainsaw sounding guitars. It's another old school death metal banger. It's everything you would expect from an Obituary song. You get lots of wailing guitar squeals, the heavy breakdown filled with distorted dissonance, and these demonic sounding vocals. The song also has one of the best guitar solos in the album and awesome drum fills. My Will to Live is a cool song. The intro gives me these Creeping Death by Metallica vibes. Another song that's not very fast paced but doesn't lose any of its heaviness. There are just some cool guitar riffs in this one, a slight Middle Eastern feel, but the song just lots of heavy guitars and chuggings. The lyrics are more minimalistic, but the music makes up for it. By the Dawn is just an old school death metal song with some galloping rhythm and brutal vocals. I like the drumming on the song, it's very solid. Like most of the album, it just has those signature guitar squeals. Weaponize the Hate is another fast and heavy old school death metal song. Not much else to say about it. Just gives you everything you would ask for in an old school death metal song. Torn Apart is a song that it's just old school death metal. Just the title, it sounds like a perfect death metal song. Where you kind of think it's about somebody ripping somebody to shreds. It's actually different. It's a little more, I guess psychological, if you read the lyrics. But it's brutal, heavy, and lots of guitar shredding and some awesome lead guitar soloing. And the final song, Be Warned, it's something completely different. The band just goes full death doom. Now it's funny how the band actually starts this album with their fastest song ever, and it ends it with their slowest. For me, it was kind of the hardest for me to get into because I'm not really into that slow metal that much. But, for example, there's another album released this weekend by the band Ahab, and I was going to review it, but I just decided not to because it was just very slow. I couldn't get into it. But going back to this song, it's different. And when I was researching the album, I saw like a quote from the band saying that they were going for an Alice in Chains vibe, and you hear it specifically in some of those deep string bends that they do. So that's cool. I think the song will grow on me over time. It's not bad. You still get lots of that death metal chug, and the vocals are a lot deeper and more guttural. It's one of the best Obituary albums in a long time. I have a ranking plan for next week. I just need to give the albums another proper listen before I do my ranking, but I think this will rank very high. It's a solid album, no filler, everything you would expect from an Obituary album. My score, 9 out of 10. It may make the top 10 death metal albums list of 2023, and I know we're only 2 weeks into the year, but I think I'm going to be going back to this often. It's an album with good replay value. So that is all. Let me know what you think about this album. Got a few more new releases this weekend. My next video is going to be the self-titled album by Beyond the Black. That's all. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.